One of the main challenges we faced through the design period of this car was a very late decision on what power unit we would be using. So that really we did what we could in terms of the packaging of the car without knowing the power unit, but ultimately it led to a very compressed design cycle. I think the guys, the drawing office in particular, did a fantastic job in turning that around and then manufacturing reacting to what was a very short lead time.
So the off-season this year has been quite short. It seems like yesterday that we were in Abu Dhabi racing and Christmas doesn't seem to have really happened, but yes, the season's nearly on us. But it has been more complicated than possibly it would have been in previous years, mainly because we want to make sure that we do the best job with the car possible, and that just means all the timescales get compressed. But from my point of view, I think I've been incredibly impressed how everybody's managed to do such a good job in such a short space of time and to not cut any corners to achieve it. I think that's the most impressive thing.
Well, we haven't had a long time to design the RB12. It seems only a short while since the season ended. We've put down that old car and picked up the tools to start drawing the new one. But we're quite fortunate in that the regulations have been relatively stable since last year. And because of that, there's a lot of things we can carry over to this year, lots of concepts, if not the actual parts. So whilst our time frames have been compressed a little, we've actually been on top of it, I think.
Selecting the similar power unit was of good benefit, shall we say, at the point when it could have been a greater redesign than we'd perhaps faced to have the similar one. It didn't ease the challenge necessarily. It gave us some experience of what's been in there before, so that we were able to deal with what would have been otherwise questions back to another supplier. We had a much better understanding of what to pursue and chase and how to deal with it.
Yeah, to keep the same power unit was not a reduction of the complexity, but more it helped us in terms of leading time, because we knew how to install the engine, and it helped us to take some good design decision about that.
Keeping with the current engine suppliers definitely helped. The engines are very different, even though you assume they're all designed to the same regulations. They've all got different lumps and bumps on them. They stick into the gearbox or the chassis by different amounts. They've all got different cooling requirements. Some have big charge air cooler requirements. Some have big water cooling requirements. Some have got big batteries, small batteries, large turbos. So a late change to a different engine would be a very major upheaval. In keeping the same one, or one that's generically very similar to the one we had last year, then a lot of those major changes have been kept away from us, and we've been able to progress quite quickly.
Well, the regs for this year are slightly different around the exhausts, but that's one of the only real changes. So I think hopefully it'll make the engines louder. We'll see at the first test on Monday, but also there will be small changes around the rear of the car in terms of the flow from the exhaust and so on. I don't honestly think it'll make a significant difference to the performance of the cars.
I think the new regulation changes, which are fairly limited, there's a requirement for a change in the exhaust system, where the exit from the wastegate now has a separate exit to ambient. So when you look at the back of the car, there will no longer be one big exhaust pipe. There'll be another one or two next to it, depending on who's designed it. I think they might be a little bit louder. I don't think it'll be much louder. In terms of performance, I don't think there'll be much in it. The existing regulation is still pretty tight in terms of what you can do with exhaust gases, so I think there'll be little performance to be had from it. It actually might be a bit slower because you've got the weight of some more exhaust pipes to deal with.
Last year was a difficult start to the season. We had some handling issues through some different philosophies we tried over the winter. They didn't work out, but it was a very useful exercise. So often, if you have a good handling car, it's difficult to learn. If you make some mistakes, then you can really learn from those mistakes, and that's exactly what happened last season. Some mistakes early on, proved very valuable lessons from those mistakes. And so by the second half of the year, I think we had a very competitive car, as was demonstrated in the middle sector at Spa, the rain in Austin, the bumpy Singapore race and so forth. I think we've managed to build further from those lessons from last season, and all the indications from our simulations are that this year's chassis should be very strong.
We did make good progress last year. I think the results were perhaps more evident from mid-season on, but we were progressing from the first race, really. I look forward to hopefully being a bit more competitive at the start of the year. Yet, as I said, we are judged relative to our opposition. We put in a phenomenal effort through the year. Many skilled people put in a lot of dedicated hours, and we are judged relative to the front-running car. If that's us, fantastic. If it's not, we've got a lot of work to do. And so yes, we've had a positive winter. Now we'll judge our results, unfortunately, relative to everybody else.
Well, yeah, we did make some progress at the end, towards the end of last year. I think we were certainly more competitive. The car started off reasonably reliable last year, but we did lack some performance, and there were some minor gremlins that we needed to get on top of. And like all these things, you think they're minor, but once you've got on top of them, you find more doors open to you, and you quickly find more performance. So we're hoping that we'll build on what we learned last year and sort of march on. So yes, I hope we'll be more competitive from the off.
So far, the numbers from CFD and wind tunnel are pretty encouraging. I mean, obviously, I'm never entirely happy with what's coming out of the wind tunnel, but that's part of my job, I think. But certainly, I've been incredibly surprised that we've managed to get so much out of this set of regulations, which, as I say, has been fairly stable. It's a function of everybody understanding the car that we had last year, but also, I think, identifying the problems that we had and really focusing on those. And I think we've made some fairly big steps forward.
Yeah, to be satisfied with a number from Aero is a big word. We are never satisfied, I will say. It's a continuous development process, and we are not looking for absolute number. We are looking for relative number compared to others. The progress is significant, and we will see if it's enough or not. But we are continuing developing the car, and it's a competition against the others.
I guess we're never really satisfied with the numbers you get back from CFD or the wind tunnel or wherever, because the day you're satisfied is the day to sort of pack up and go home. I think we are optimistic that we've made some good gains. But the problem is there are numbers, and unless you can see everyone else's numbers, you don't know where you are. So I think we're happy that we're going in the right direction from our own point of view, but we won't really know until we get to Melbourne.
Well, my hopes for RB12 are that it continues the sort of same rich vein of form that we had with RB11. And obviously there were not necessarily the results that we'd hoped, but I think we all knew that we had a good foundation in the car and the chassis. I'd like to see that continue. And also the main thing that I'd really like to see is that it's a good foundation for any upgrades that we get on the power unit side, on the aerodynamics, on anything else. That's the main thing. Provided it gives you a basis to work on, I think that's the most you can hope for, really.
My hopes for the RB12, should we say first and second at the Australian Grand Prix would be nice. You asked for hopes. Winter testing, we'll deal with what we get. It'll be ups and downs as always. But I think we've got to focus on our car, not worry about what everybody else is doing. There are other people who will do that for us. Make sure we go to Australia in the best state we can be, well prepared, get the most out of the car we can at each race, and put ourselves in a position by which we can either win it, challenge for a podium, or benefit from anything that happens around us.
Well, as far as the RB12 is concerned, I kind of hope that we can win some races. It sounds a bit far-fetched after last year's performance, where we were really struggling at the beginning of the year, and I guess we had a couple of half chances at some really good results, but you know, events conspired against us, or our ability conspired against us. But I think this year that I think power-wise, hopefully we can make a bit of a step, and that will level the playing field a bit.
I'm often asked what is the area of the car I'm most pleased with. I think with the stable regulations we have at the moment and quite a restrictive set of regulations, it's difficult to find any major new areas, the blown exhaust, those sorts of things that we've had in the past. But I think therefore what we've really tried to concentrate on with this car is getting a cohesive package where all the parts, the suspension, the chassis dynamics, the aerodynamics, they all work together in harmony.
I think I'd really struggle to say that there's any area of the car that I'm particularly pleased about. I think the one thing I'm most pleased about is how everything has kind of come together this year. We've adopted a philosophy with the car of trying to design everything front to back. And I can look around the car and see evidence of that working everywhere. I think the really nice thing to see is that all of the development areas are working together, and that there is an understanding of what's going on in the other parts of the car as well.
I'm not very pleased with one specific area of the car, to be fair, because Formula One is a combination of all areas, and the performance is a multiplication factor for each. I'm very pleased with the combination we did and the final result we'll have in terms of overall package. As I said, when you make a different aero choice, it will affect another aspect, but it's not a competition between all groups in the team. It's a big word, it's a compromise, but it's not. It's more a combination to achieve a better performance on the overall car.
Can't say.
There is a change in the regulations of the tyres and the way the tyres are used, and indeed the tyres themselves. That brings some opportunities in terms of our strategies, how we use the tyres, perhaps trying to place the fact that generally speaking we are quite kind on the tyres. We suffer less from degradation than some of our rivals. So it's an extra area that hopefully we can use the performance of the car to benefit from.
The new tyre regulations present us with some variety, shall we say. It gives us the ability to have, in addition to the prescriptive choices, our own compound choices. And Pirelli have revised the tyres to limit, shall we say, how we use them by restricting us in terms of wear life. So there can be seen to be a desire to take softer and softer tyres, yet with a wear limit that's, shall we say, imposed via Pirelli, it's an interesting challenge. And it'd take a while, I think, for everyone to evolve to not common solutions, but similar solutions. So it'd be an interesting one to see how it pans out, and hopefully we get it right and everybody else can get it wrong and we can enjoy the benefits.
I think the introduction of the new extra compound tyre is quite an interesting innovation. It might give a few teams the opportunity to sort of roll a few dice at a few events where you might go, actually our tyre deg is potentially better than our opposition typically at these kind of circuits, and that we're going to roll the dice and go for a racier tyre and see whether we can make it last. So it's interesting. I don't think it's going to change the World Championship, but it might give the odd team a chance of putting a fast one on some of the bigger teams. So it's not a bad idea.
When the car first runs, then there's always that slight heart in the mouth feeling of, is it going to work? Is there going to be some horrible surprise relative to the simulation work that we've done over the winter? Have we got a correlation issue, perhaps between the wind tunnel and what the car does on track? By the end of the first day, we'll have got the data to see whether the car seems to be performing as we expect it to. If the answer is yes, it is, then that's the first box ticked, and then it's down to the usual development cycle.
Well, on 22nd of February, which is Monday, I keep thinking that I must have missed something. It must be my wife's birthday or something. But no, it's testing. I remember that now. But I think we're all going to be feeling fairly nervous, but also very excited. It's always exciting to see a new car that you've been working on for the last few months come together and finally go out onto track. But the nerves come from really what the drivers are going to say about it, and they're not shy about telling us what they think about the car, so hopefully there'll be mostly good comments.
optimistic, a bit tired, and really looking forward to getting going.